Two of the great models in our church for faith and our religion, obviously the first one, Mary, Mother of God. But the second one has to be, at least in my opinion, is Abraham. Abraham was a man of faith, and he was a man of faith because he heard God's call. It's good enough, but in God's call, he was required to move somewhere. God was not just happy enough to give Abraham his inheritance, if you will, where he was living. There were strings attached, as always. Always in God's call, there's strings, and there's fine print. We'll get to the fine print in a second, but there's always strings attached. So to be followers of Christ, to be followers of God, means we hear the message, but we also have to get ready and say, all right, now what do I got to do? Okay, and this is exactly how it is with us, and we can't escape it. Abraham. God said to Abraham, I'm going to make you a great nation. Abraham, an old man by this time. And Abraham said, well, great. However, God says, I want you to go from this place to this place. And it's quite a journey, a far journey. And now you are required to do this. You have to move. Movement is required. So that when God asks us to do something out of faith, we have to move. And I don't exactly know what that movement means. It's all different because God speaks to us differently. But Abraham just had to move places. However, let's look at Abraham again, an old man, and think how it's like to move. Now, some of you are younger, obviously, so us older people in here right now can appreciate the fact of movement. It's not as easy. When I was 20 years old, I could move with no problem. I had no problem going on a road trip. I had no problem visiting friends, no problem doing anything. We got in a car, where we're going, I don't know, what do we do when we get there? And you didn't care. You could sleep on the floor. When you're with your friends, it doesn't matter because you're with your friends and you're having a good time. And you don't worry about your body so much, at least uncomfortableness and all of that. As you get older, suddenly these things, come into play. Where we're going, how long it's going to take to get there, where are we going to stay when we get there. I have all sorts of conditions for God now that I'm getting older. And as I'm getting older, the conditions that I put upon God and the things that I expect from God grows as my age grows. And now Abraham has got the same problem. He says, what? I've got to go? And I've got to leave? And so, but he does. He listens to the voice. I guess he trusts in the voice, which makes him my hero. Because he trusts in the voice to go. Because how hard is it? And think about this. How hard is it for all of us to really listen to God? Oh, we know we have faith, and we throw that word around, but faith means no insurance. And believe me, I'm always looking for insurance, just in case this God thing, just in case this Jesus thing that I believe in just doesn't work out. There's always, maybe I'll have a little money here, or I'll fix up something here. In other words, I have got a plan in the back of my head just in case things don't work out the way maybe I think they should work out. And the voice leads me to somewhere where I am not comfortable, and so I'll have to make do with myself. Now, that's the hard part, and that's the strings that are attached to faith. What's the fine print? Here's the fine print. Talks about Abraham here. All these died in faith without having received the promises. So Abraham was told, you're going to be a great nation. You know what? He never saw it. Never did. Now, he did have a kid, which was good, and that was the good start. So he did have a child. However, he never saw this great nation. He never saw it. Never, ever saw it. That's the fine print of faith. Guess what? We'll never see it realized. It's always in the future. That's where we're going. That's where we're heading. And you know what? We'll never, ever get there. We'll never realize it. is for the next generation. We are always working for the next generation, always helping them out, always making sure that they are a little bit further down the road than we are. That's the fine print of faith, which is difficult in, once again, today's world, especially in today's technological world where we want everything now, don't we? We want everything now, where everything is just so instant, where if our computers do not respond in just a second or two, how we get so frustrated with this computer. It's not giving me the information that I want right now. And we've had to wait maybe a second or two. But that second or two is just a lifetime suddenly for us. And so Jesus and God today is saying, wait a minute, let's look at time. Time is different now. It's not our concept of time, it's God's concept of time. And time can mean way down the road with plenty of downtime for us. And it's now, well, what do you do with that? What do we do? And what does faith demand of us to do with all of this downtime that we have to deal with? Okay, here we go. The gospel readings. And now we're going to start to get into the nitty-gritty of the faith. The faith to listen to the voice, the faith to listen to God. But what does that mean? The first thing it means is to be vigilant. In our first gospel reading here, it says, be dressed for action, have your lamps lit, be like those waiting for their master's return from a wedding feast. In the old days, a servant had to wait at the gate for the master to return. No automatic garage door openers, nothing like that. It was the servants. They were it. And so the servants were put at the gate. And so whenever the master went out, a servant had to sit. And God forbid that the master wait to get into his own property. So the servant had to sit. And who knows for how long? You just had to sit there. And you had to be vigilant. It's not easy. It could get boring, downright boring. Or it could get difficult. And that's exactly what we are called to do. We are at the gate, if you will. We are at the gate of faith, and we have to remain faithful. Faithful no matter what the day, night, temperature, doesn't matter how we feel. It matters most that we are there waiting for the Master. We are there doing the Master's work. We are vigilant in our faith, and it requires a tremendous amount of energy. It requires a will that we have to call upon because it is not easy. And this is where we willfully have to be Christian. In other words, when we just don't feel like it, when we wake up and we're in a bad mood, if we've gone through the day and suddenly we're in a bad mood, and if things are not going right and we're in a bad mood, suddenly we have to call upon Jesus and willfully, coming from the gut, saying, you know what? I am just mad right now. But I have to be Christian. I have to act in faith. I have to follow Christ. Which then leads us to the second story. What does faith mean exactly? Well, here it comes. This is the second parable. This is the master who left and left another servant in charge. But the servant in charge, what happened was, he said, well, my master is delayed in coming. So he says, I don't know when my master is coming back. Who knows? So what did this guy do? He began to beat the other servants, men and women, to eat, drink, and get drunk. To be faithful people in this world, then, means that we stop beating the crap out of one another. And that is very important. Now, what do I mean by that? If you do it figuratively, stop it. Hopefully you are not, but if you are, stop it. However, there's many, many different ways of beating each other, especially in Christianity. We've learned to get around it. We've learned to rationalize it. It's in our looks. It's how we talk to one another. How do we greet one another? You know what we do. We all do it. It's in our voice inflection, and it's in the words that we use. And they could be pretty words. but you can use pretty words to beat each other over the head with. It's that simple. And we know what we're doing. We know it all the time. So what is faith then? Faith means that you don't do that. Faith means that Jesus is saying there is a better way. Faith means that down the line, we are going to make this world a better place. That you know what? We can get along. You know what? We can be kind and civil to one another. It can be done. And you know what? It's going to start here. It's going to start right now. It's going to start with what comes out of my mouth. It's going to start with what comes out of your mouth. This is the faith that we're talking about here. Faith in action. Just as Abraham had to move from one area to another, and he put his faith in action, Jesus today is saying, I want you to put your faith in action. We are to show the world that this world is a good and loving place. And we do that by the action that comes out of our mouth and the action that we do to one another. And that is faith. So that is what we are called upon today to do. And now through Abraham and through the parables of Jesus, as we leave this church, let us be careful of our tongue. Let us be careful of our actions and make sure that they totally agree with the faith that Jesus has called us to, that is way down the line.